Welcome everybody to Tales from the Jar Side. I don't have any pictures from Crete yet, but I do have a newsletter, so let's get to it. So the title this week is Tales from the Jar Side, Adventures in AI with Java Text Blocks. Elon Musk's it up again, YouTube activities, and the usual tweets and toots. The subtitle is, I told my son not to listen to losers, and now he won't talk to me. Welcome, fellow jarheads, to Tales from the Jar Side, the Cousin IT newsletter for the week of June 25th to July 2nd, 2023. The dates are right this time. That's because last week I remembered I put in the wrong week, and this week I almost changed it. Almost, but I finally remembered to leave it alone, and now it's correct. So I did have two classes this week. I taught a half-day class as a no-fluff, just-stuff virtual workshop, one on JUnit and AssertJ, Java testing part 1. And then the next day I taught the part 2 of that sequence, discussing mocks, stubs, and spies with Mockito. I'll have a little bit more about that later when I talk about the AI tools. On the YouTube channel, I published a newsletter video, one long-form video, which really counts as last week, and a single YouTube short, but I also held a live stream with my friend Jonathan Johnson. Let's do our quick check-in on the YouTube channel. There. Okay, we have 431 subscribers. Hey, we took a little bump there. That's good. 431 subscribers, 85 videos. And the ones I wanted to mention, first of all, this is last week's newsletter video, I believe. Actually, let me go to the videos tab here. And that has them in order. So there's the last week's newsletter video, and this is the one, the long form one I was referring to was the CSI Dan Vega talking about the Spring Boot HTTP interfaces and how I basically leveraged his video to create mine, although even he liked it, he was very happy with it. In terms of shorts, I put up this simple video, this simple short on using parallel streams in tests. I did that this was part of last week's video from the newsletter, and then I ran it through that Descript tool I was telling you about before and extracted the 1 minute out of there. I really had to make a bunch of cuts to do that. And it basically just shows that when I had to access that RESTful web service, the JSON placeholder one, and access all the items from IDs 1 to 100, doing them consecutively worked, but I could actually use a parallel stream to do that, and therefore did them all pretty much concurrently, and the speed was a good 5 to 10 times faster. So at any rate, that's there. The other thing I did was the live stream here, and I mentioned this in the newsletter further on, but here it is. There's the Tales from the Jar Side live stream with Jonathan Johnson. Jonathan is very, very good at a lot of the stuff that I'm not good at, especially the operations part. I'm more the developer side. So I'm happy creating the Spring Boot application. He's happy deploying it to the cloud and using Kubernetes and containers and all of those features. And we talk about all of that. He's had a very interesting history, especially concerning some of his work with supporting IT support for laboratory experiments with biological research and DNA sequencing and things like that. It was really very interesting discussion. Okay, enough of that. And we covered a section of the newsletter anyway. I do mention that on Friday I began the long journey to Kanya, Crete, for the JCrete unconference, and that's where I am now, which started today. So if this issue's all over the place, I'll blame travel fatigue, and yeah, that's a thing. Regular readers of and listeners to, and of course video viewers of this newsletter are affectionately known as jarheads and are far more intelligent, sophisticated, and attractive than the average newsletter reader or listener or viewer. So not just intelligent, not just sophisticated, but attractive as well. If you wish to become a jarhead, please subscribe using the button in the newsletter or subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're growing and growing. At least we're trying. Let's jump into the first section, the adventures in AI. JetBrains, the maker of the IntelliJ IDEA development environment, my IDE of choice, announced that in their EAP version, the early access program version, they now include an AI assistant. And I have a link here to the blog post the IntelliJ IDEA blog, and they talked about AI assistance in JetBrains IDEs. If I magnify that pretty big or large enough to read. And the interesting features, you could take a look at them yourself, but the three things that they pointed out were explain the code, suggest refactoring, or find potential problems. I didn't use it for that as much. You can highlight code and then say new chat with that code in it. But what does look appealing is the documentation generation, which will generate Java docs for individual methods. That looks pretty good. The name suggestions for declarations. When you rename a Java, Kotlin, or Python declaration, the AI will suggest name options based on the contents. You could turn that off or on. And then this one, I actually do think I'll be using the commit message generation. So there's a way to generate a commit message with the AI assistant, and it'll say everything that you did during this most recent set of changes. And that gets to be kind of a pain, so that's nice. But this is only available in early access. So let me tell you what happened. So at any rate, I was running my JUnit course, and I was talking to the students about parameterized tests using what's known as let me scroll up to the top here, a CSV source, comma separated values. And it turns out you can provide a text block. One of the new features that was added, I believe, in Java 14, I think, 15 at the latest, where you had a multi-line string available. And you could see that I pasted some code in here and I said, this code is supposed to run both lines of the text block as parameterized tests, but it's only running one of them. And I used the parameterized test with the CSV source. And if it only ran one. So first the AI assistant went, hey, wait a minute, it looks like your data sets are defined consistently, but your delimiter and quote character settings are redundant. Well, I knew that. That's true. Then it said the real issue seems to be your usage of local date directly in your data source, because the argument here is of type local date. I've tried to make this really big, but apparently, let's see if I can make it even bigger. There we go. So my argument's of type local date, and I'm providing a string. And it complained about that, and it said, yeah, try this instead, which put in a string as the argument and then parsed it. And notice, by the way, they got rid of my text block. It switched to an array, which I already knew how to do. So I said, okay, first, there's nothing wrong with providing a string to the local date parameter as long as it's in the proper ISO 8601 standard format. Secondly, you changed my text block to an array of strings, which I already know works. How do I get it to work with a text block? And it said, oh, you're absolutely right. As of JUnit Jupyter 5.7.0, a built-in implicit conversion of strings to java.time objects has been added, including local date. Concerning the usage of text blocks, this has been a known issue with JUnit 5. I'm like, it has? In JUnit's CSV source and value source, text block strings are read as a single string argument. This is because the new line characters are retained. So it's reading your two lines as a single test. The current workaround is to replace the new line with a sequence of characters that will not appear in the string, and then use that as a line separator. So notice they threw in a dash end here, if you could see that, and then said line separator equals. And I'm like, okay, I've never heard of that. So I put it in the code, and of course I had to tell it there is no property of CSV source annotation called line separator. So it went, oh, I apologize for the confusion earlier. Yes, you do. You're absolutely right. There is no line separator property. To get the text block working as expected, you could insert explicit new line characters to split the string to two lines. You could see they've embedded a \n into my string. And oh, by the way, we're back to an array of strings again. Took out my text block. So it says, yeah, as of JUnit 5.7 onwards, the single backslashes should not be doubled in text blocks, which it's no longer using. I apologize for the confusion. Hope this resolves it. And I said, you went back to an array again, and I want to use a text block. Oh, apologize one more time for the misunderstanding. You're correct. Text blocks handle the new line character differently. Here's how you can use text blocks. And notice what it did. It went to a freaking method source where it passed in, here's the method, provide test arguments, and put in the text block, and split it at the line delimiter and then mapped it. It's like, are you out of your mind? At any rate, in this example, I'm using a method source instead of a CSV source. This method, blah, blah, blah. And I'm realizing, okay, I give up. It's totally wrong. It has no idea what it's doing. And that's typical if you're not doing something you've done a million times before. You know what the right answer is? Here's the right answer. In CSV source, there's a parameter called text block. I was putting in value equals because I didn't realize there was a text block parameter. I just changed it to text block, and now this test runs just fine. I could execute it. And you see, yep, ran both lines. Jean-Luc Picard, William Riker, parsed it, no problem. Now, of course, this is obvious in both the documentation and in the Java docs. I just misread it. But hey, maybe I'll get a video out of it. Who knows? All right, let's go back to the newsletter. So I've basically discussed everything. Okay, multi-line strings text blocks were final in version 15. All right. And then I show an example from the Java docs. And here I put it in without the text block equals argument, and that defaults to value. And of course, value didn't work. So going down, I discussed what we just went through, and then I changed it to text block, and now it's fine. So the real trick is to RTFM, as they say, read the frickin' manual, which I did read. In fact, here, this is the manual section on CSV source right here. And this is a CSV source with an array, but I think it even says somewhere in here, using a text block, the previous example can be implemented as follows. Use headers and display name and text block equals. So, if I just read it. Okay. So much for AI putting us all out of business. It may still, I don't know. But in fact, I've gotten to the point now where I'm getting tired of hearing these predictions of doom and gloom about how generalized AI is going to take over the world, or even this simple AI is going to explode, all because a basic tool that could do a lot of things right and a lot of things wrong was released early and took off. It went viral. Is it going to continue to go viral? Nothing continues to go viral. Is it going to have an impact? Of course it's going to have an impact. Does anybody know what that impact is going to be, plus or minus? No. They're drawing straight lines based on a couple of data points. We don't know. It's going to matter. It already matters. Is it going to change our lives? Well, give it 6 months and I'll come back and ask me again. I just know what I'm doing with it now and what I'm trying to do with it now. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. Okay, now the other AI issue I mentioned in the newsletter, I didn't really get to talk to you about this too much. I've described it in the last couple of weeks. I'm trying to generate a question bank, and I don't want to put in a question bank for training courses. I think this is a mistake. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's actually missing the point, and I think it's being used to assess training class students by managers, and I don't think that's even a good idea. At any rate, I'm trying to use Google's Bard to do it. And the reason I'm using Bard is because Bard integrates cleanly with Google Docs. And that way I could take the answers and upload them to Google Docs, and then I could write Java code based on the Google Docs and Google Files API and download the documents and merge the questions together. The problem this week is I spent time looking at those questions that were generated, and there's a lot of issues there. The questions were not as good as I was hoping. There's some misinterpretations of what I was asking. Just a simple thing is I told it what format to give me the multiple choice questions in. I did not say only give me one right answer per question. So a lot of the questions have 2 or 3 right answers or all of the above. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. At any rate, I'm having to go through them all and clean everything up. So it's karma biting me for trying to avoid all that work. Let's move on to our next section. This is titled, Elon is not only stupid, he lies too. And you probably knew that. I like this cartoon, which is Elon poking a dead bird. This parrot is dead. No, that's what type of bird do they use? At any rate, the Twitter bird is dead. Come on, make money. Saying, come on, make money. Everything was going along fine in the Twitter world for a very loose interpretation of the word fine, when sometime on Saturday, Elon decided to make a huge change and again, not tell anybody about it. I was on a plane flying across the Atlantic and suddenly I could no longer get any new tweets. And I got an error message that said updates unavailable, try again later. After a few tries, I realized something was wrong with the site. It wasn't me. A lot of other people got the same conclusion. It turns out that Elon, in his infinite stupidity, decided to make two fundamental changes, one that didn't directly affect me and the other that did. One was that you now have to be logged in to see any tweets at all. It used to be that you didn't have to log in, and if you had the address for somebody's Twitter feed, you could still browse their tweets. So why not? You couldn't add anything or remove anything, but you could read them. It was fine. Well, nope, sorry, no more of that. You have to log in. Now, unfortunately, the website tries to log you in automatically or tries to retrieve tweets and you're not logged in, so you can't get them. And the result was hundreds of requests a minute, actually like 10 a second or something like that. And they effectively did their own distributed denial of service attack on themselves, because this is not something any developer at Twitter had remotely planned for. Secondly, and this is the one that mattered, Elon imposed a rate limit on everybody. If you're a, quote, verified account, meaning you paid the money to get a blue check, not that you had any verification at all, but if you paid the money, then it just allows you, I think it's a relatively high limit, 10,000, something like that. You could read a whole bunch of tweets. But if you're not verified, and that's almost everybody, then you were limited at the time to only 600 tweets in a given session, which sounds like a lot, except that there's so many ads on Twitter right now, right in your tweet stream, that I would guess a third of the tweets that you see are ads anyway. And that counts towards your limit. They never say anything about that, And then I think he raised it to 800, and now I think he's settled on 1,000, according to the idiotic article in the New York Times, which is basically just printing their press releases. It was terrible. But that means you're done. And of course, the question was, what the heck happened? Why do this? Now, the lie, of course, his excuse was that these AI tools are making money off of Twitter by scraping all these tweets, and he doesn't want that. He wants them to pay for it. Though he didn't say exactly how or when or why, he just said, no, we're blocking all that. But then that would bring up the question, oh yeah, why now? And why now exactly this way? And why impose such a harsh limit on everybody? You're basically hammering the whole world. And the best explanation I saw was that Twitter apparently had its contract with Amazon Web Services expire at the end of June, so on June 30th. And they are in the process of switching over to Google servers. Now, that is stupid on the part of Google, because Elon is now notorious for not paying any bills. Sound familiar? And what apparently happened is that he hasn't paid his Amazon Web Services bill, like $1 billion or something. And therefore, his service was being monitored and then throttled. And he had to stop the bleeding. So he limited everybody and made it so you couldn't even get in unless you were logged in and all that stuff. Now, the truth is, I don't know whether all that is what actually happened. I don't have any independent verification, but I love this little comment on Mastodon that said, I like that the three working theories for why Twitter broke are: one, Twitter's DDoSing itself, that's the distributed denial of service attack, because Elon's an idiot. Or two, Twitter's losing servers after the company ignored bills, because Elon is an idiot, and yeah, he's an idiot. And three, Twitter hopes to force people to pay because Elon is an idiot. That seems plausible, because regardless of what the actual reasons are, Elon is being an idiot. I mean, he's trying to attract advertisers. At the same time, he's limiting people's access to tweets or even their ability to see the ads. Oh, my God. I mean, I forget who said it, that there are many ways to destroy a company, and by the time he's done, Elon will have done all of them. The reaction of those of us hanging out on Mastodon was the beautiful, the "this is fine" in replacing the little dog with the Twitter bird surrounded by flames, versus the Mastodon mascot sitting in a nice little garden and everything really is fine. There were a huge influx of people onto Mastodon. There was such a big influx of people onto Blue Sky that Blue Sky couldn't keep up with the demand and had performance problems all day long. Mastodon went, sure, whatever, it's a distributed system. It worked out a lot better. The best tweets I saw in response to all this, I had saved in a row in I think this was in my Twitter account, actually. These are all tweets. Probably one person saying, hey, I got a product idea, Twitter, from 8 months ago, right? Or another one saying, Elon's razor, no matter the quality of the official explanation, the real reason is dumber. Yeah, I buy that. And Craig Calcaterra saying, Elon turning invitations to a competitor's business, that's Blue Sky, into something as coveted as the letters of transit out of Casablanca is the most hilarious thing ever. Yeah, everybody's trying to find a way out. What's the way to get rid of this thing? It's really harsh. I mean, a lot of people care about that site or built entire businesses and friendships and communities all around tweets. It was the greatest real-time news service that was ever created, and now it's ripped to shreds. Katie Mack had the best statement, as she often does. She said, wow, he really musked it up this time. Good Lord. Yeah, perfect. I mentioned the invitation to a competitor's business was the Blue Sky, and I'll mention it to you in case anybody wants to reply. I currently have count them, 2 invitations to Blue Sky. So if you want one, just send me a message until they're gone. I think you get a new one every 2 weeks or something that you're on the site. I still don't do much with it. It's still pretty bland over there. There's no way for it to preserve where I was in the tweets and then scroll up or whatever. I don't like the system very much. It's primitive, but it's certainly a lot friendlier than it is here. I do hope that he musked it up. He really musked it up this time is a phrase that becomes a meme. Honestly, Twitter is still too big a part of my life because there's so many people I follow there that have not moved. Maybe this will get them to move. It's just devastating to watch the owner do everything in his power to destroy it. I really hate that guy, and I'm ashamed I ever thought he was intelligent. Next section. I already kind of covered this, so this will be really quick. The YouTube activity, I mentioned the long-term video, the one where my son helped me with the thumbnail here, which he was very pleased with. I think that's pretty good. It's on the spring HTTP interfaces with Dan Vega, and the video is doing reasonably well. Why'd I include it this week as well? And I said, I remember when the millennium rolled around and people were debating whether the millennium actually started on January 1st, 2000, or really it's January 1st, 2001, because there was no year zero. And my stated opinion at the time was any reasonable person would have a party on both days. So I'm counting that video, because it came out last Sunday, as being in both newsletters, both last week and this week. I know. What it really means is I'm feeling bad I didn't get a long form video put together this week other than the newsletter video. But things have gotten really chaotic, and they're going to be very busy for July. Then things should calm down a little bit in August again before picking up in the fall. But I'll be working on it. Anything else here? I mentioned something about that short and made with Descript, so I already took care of that. And I already talked about the live stream with Jonathan, so you've got a link to that as well. Okay, let's go on to a short section about JCrete. Now, I only arrived here yesterday, but I did manage to go to today's sessions, and it's very different going to an unconference. A lot of people propose the topics they want to talk about with a title and a few sentences. They do that on a microphone in front of everybody for like a couple minutes in the morning, and then they put a little piece of paper, tack it on a bulletin board, and everybody has a couple votes as to which ones of those talks are interested in attending or hearing. There were 3 sessions, and they were all there were a lot of parallel sessions too, but there were 3 slots. I went to one on AI tools for Java developers, which was pretty good. And I went to one on burnout among developers, which was also pretty good. And the third one was on build tools. And that was a little dicey because some people are, shall we say, strongly opinionated about build tools, Maven versus Gradle. And I don't like to argue a lot. So it was still well done. And the people are very, very good. It's very interesting. I have 4 more days here. We're coming back Saturday. So next Sunday, I've got to put together another newsletter based on my experiences, and that ought to be an adventure. All right, let's go. Let's move to the tweets and toots, or even skeets. In case you were not aware, a skeet is what they call a tweet or a post on Blue Sky. So the first one I put in was a baseball one, actually. It's about Shohei Ohtani, who, as unbelievably good as he was last year, has exceeded all expectations this year. This is a little snippet out of a Peanuts cartoon from 1966, where Peppermint Patty's saying, I hit 5 home runs and pitched a no-hitter, and we're behind 37-5. Whoever heard of 37 unearned runs? This is ridiculous. And the statement is, a 1966 comic strip eerily predicts the career of Shohei Ohtani. I think Shohei is leading the league, or at most second or third in home runs this year, and is, everybody acknowledges, one of the best pitchers in the game. He's already an all-star starter as the DH. I'm sure he's going to be one of the top 2 or 3 pitchers as well. Let's be clear about this. That's not possible. You can't do that. People have been playing baseball professionally for 120, 130 years. You can't just do that. And he's doing that as both a pitcher and a hitter. This is remarkable. Remarkable doesn't even begin to cover it. This is amazing. People are going to tell their grandchildren about this. It's incredible. All right. Of course, the best part is he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year and can finally escape the tragedy that is the Angels, as long as somebody's willing to sign over $500 million or whatever it's going to take to sign him. So stay tuned. Should be entertaining. Battle of the Nerds. This was from Zoe Schiffer, who said, "Please, Lord, let it be true." And the tweet was, the Italian government has reached out to Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg about staging their cage match, their little fight, in the actual Roman Colosseum, according to TMC. What an unbelievable waste of time, effort, energy, everything. It's a couple of tech bros trying to act tough, when what they're really demonstrating is that they're pathetic, really. It's laughable. They don't understand that people really are laughing at them. Nobody's laughing with them on this. Everybody wants them to fight just so they hurt each other. That's all anybody wants to see. The best commentary I heard, however, was it turned out that Elon's mom on her Twitter account was telling him to knock it off and don't do this. And someone whose tweet I can't find said the fight being canceled because Elon's mom won't let him would be the best possible resolution to this silliness. So we'll see. Somebody brought up an old Dorothy Parker quote. All Dorothy Parker quotes are good. That's the default. Go by that. And this one says, if you have any young friends who aspire to become writers, the second greatest favor you can do them is to present them with copies of The Elements of Style. The first greatest, of course, is to shoot them now while they're happy. I'm going to assume that's more fiction writing. It's hard being a nonfiction writer, as I generally am, but I don't think I was that miserable, but I get it. So, okay. The chess cheating scandal, the one with Hans Niemann and Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura and chess.com and all of that, when Niemann decided that he tried to sue them for slander or libel, whichever one is the one in print, or I don't know what he was suing over, but he claimed that they made him look like a cheater, and he was upset, and he sued them all for $100 million. And it took a few months, but that case this week got dismissed. So much for that. So Hans Niemann's, there's the article from Wall Street Journal. The headline says, Hans Niemann's $100 million lawsuit over chess cheating allegations dismissed. The federal judge dismissed Hans Moke Niemann's $100 million lawsuit against blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't know if that's all going to be the end of it. It is significant to notice that Niemann's rating hasn't really dropped. I mean, he's still about a 2,700 player. So he's probably not cheating in live events on standard time. The cheating he admitted to was all online anyway, and it was on rapid stuff. Or even Blitz. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. I do know that there were dozens of reasons to dismiss that lawsuit, starting with standing. Why are you suing here when it should be there? I think it was dismissed without prejudice, however, meaning that he can refile, but he'd have to refile in Connecticut, where he apparently is based. I didn't even know that. And Connecticut has what they call anti-slap laws, which means if you file a frivolous lawsuit that gets dismissed, you can get charged for court costs, and even they can even penalize you for the frivolousness. So I don't expect anything refiled anytime soon. We'll see. The cartoonist Tom Gauld put up this great cartoon. It said, I got mixed up and sent my grant proposal to my publisher and my science fiction manuscript to the funding board. And they both got approved. So now I have to write a novel about eel migration and build a fleet of telepathic robot crabs that fight climate change with lasers. I would read that and I would go see it. That's really good. I remember when I was an undergrad and dinosaurs roamed the earth, the saying was that if any brainstorm session didn't bring up lasers, it wasn't really trying. Nowadays, of course, everything would say AI. One person that I know did put a post up that, oh, geez. I mean, the way I responded is the post said that AI and machine learning are not the same thing. So I put a tweet up that said, or a post, I think it was on Mastodon, where I said, I think I have AI poisoning after all the time I spent with Bard and with ChatGPT this week. And my friend says, I think you mean ML poisoning, not AI, for machine learning. And I respond in the tweet, I say, you should get yourself checked. I think that's a symptom, right? There we go. I also put up one clever Mastodon tweet. Let me find it. So let me break for a minute. So here was my little post. I said, cue the proclaimers. I would read 600 tweets and I would read 600 more just to be the man who saw the message. Tweets unavailable. Try again later. Yeah. Da 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 da. Yeah, okay. So that was my attempt at humor. Wait a minute. I guess I should give myself credit here. There we are. So be it. Today is a good day to what? So it says tea time with Mr. Worf. A man once told me time heals all wounds, so I stabbed him. Now we wait. Yeah, okay. I mean, kind of clever. Everybody always wants Worf to be violent. He rarely was, actually. But then this is the other Star Trek related joke. It said, as Pooh Bear prepared to beam down, he realized he was wearing a red shirt. And yes, he is. And by the way, so did Scotty. The engineering team on the Enterprise in the original series wore red also. So it wasn't just the security guards. But if Pooh is wearing a red shirt and he's a security guard, yeah, he's in real trouble. I didn't put any skeets from Blue Sky. I don't think I collected very many. And also, turns out I didn't find an easy way to find the ones that I'd liked. But somebody responded to the newsletter with a suggestion, so I'll try that for next week. See if I could figure that out. So wrapping up, last week I did the JUnit course and the Makito course, and this week I'm at JCrete, so everything's going to be sessions and conferences and meeting people and maybe some beach time. Try to do something about being quite such a pasty geek at this point, and we'll see how it goes. In the meantime, thank you very much, and I will see you again next week. Take care.